ain't that bad. Do they know we got the film crew on board?
Here are unbelievable animals discovered within the Bermuda Triangle. Do you believe in the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle? Let us know down below. Number 7. Greenland tourist. Greenland sharks were for some time considered to be isolated to, well, Greenland, the Arctic, and other deep, cold waters. But researchers were incredibly surprised when they accidentally hooked a Greenland shark in the Caribbean. They had been tagging tiger sharks in a shallow coastal reef when one of their lines suddenly plunged to some 2,000 feet, being dragged away from the reef. When they finally wrestled the shark to the surface, they realized very quickly what they had caught. This challenged the assumption almost immediately that these deep-sea, cold-water sharks only lived in the Arctic and Antarctic circles. Greenland sharks are incredibly mysterious as they live their lives at extreme depth in an environment very hostile to humans. What we do know is that they live for centuries, each shark living to at least 250 years, if not as much as 5 or 6 centuries. They have to survive for at least 130 years just before they reach maturity as well, meaning that their life cycle is incredibly slow. The shark hooked in this expedition was certainly very old, but it is impossible to tell exactly how old, though the researchers did estimate it was some 200 or 300 years. These sharks will eventually grow to 24 feet long, but at a rate of just a centimeter a year. The shark was released for its health, as every one of these rare sharks is vital for their population's survival. Number 6. The Big-Eye Thresher. Thresher sharks are some of the most gorgeous, unique, and fascinating sharks in the world. They also are my favorite sharks. The thresher shark has an incredibly elongated tail which creates a sort of whip. For a long time, no one really knew how they hunted with it. It was discovered after some observation that they did in fact use it as a whip, but it was still unknown the exact manner. Divers would catch a series of hunts by big-eye thresher sharks in the Bermuda Triangle and Caribbean, and finally discovered the actual method in which these stunning sharks hunt. The secret lies in their rigid and broad pectoral fins. First, they circle a shoal of fish, known as a bait ball. Then they swim into it at high speed and use their broad pectoral fins to anchor themselves in the water, instead putting the momentum into their tail, which they arch over themselves like a scorpion. Like a whip, the narrowing of the shark's tail increases the velocity and causes a shockwave in the water that stuns and disorients any fish it hits. The shark then calmly scoops up its stunned prey and chows down. Thresher sharks do get caught by fishermen, however, it is often very dangerous for the sharks, as they often get hooked by their tail, having whipped the lure. Then being dragged in backwards can lead to the shark drowning. The big-eye thresher is one of 3 currently living thresher species and is most often sighted around New Zealand and Japan, so seeing it in the Caribbean, while not unheard of, is certainly a rare sight. Number 5. Humpbacks. Humpback whales are some of the most stunning and distinctive creatures on the planet. They exist in every saltwater body around the world except for the extremes of the poles. There are 2 northern Atlantic groups, one that frequents the West Indies and in the summer goes to Canada and Greenland, and a West African population that congregates around Iceland and Norway in the summer. Humpbacks are so exceptionally fascinating for their incredible social and hunting behaviors. To hunt, humpbacks will congregate before identifying their targeted prey, usually a large shoal of fish, krill, or plankton. They then use one of the most fascinating hunting methods in the animal kingdom, bubble netting. By diving deep beneath the shoal, a whale can control the shoal's movement by blowing bubbles, creating a wall of bubbles that corrals the prey. They use their large and specially hydrodynamic flippers to swim in tight circles, either deep down below or spiraling upwards. Sometimes they'll even use their tails to beat the surface of the water to better control the shoal of prey. Then the whales take a massive gulp of the corralled prey, distending their mouths to catch as much food as possible. They hunt in groups, coordinating their bubble nets to capture the largest amount of prey possible. And so they are incredibly effective hunters and incredibly voracious otherwise. It's thanks to their extreme promiscuity, actually, that we have humpbacks at all. During the height of whaling, humpback whales were hunted to near complete extinction, with only a few thousand individuals alive worldwide. However, since the 1960s, their numbers have rebounded wonderfully, with some 130,000 or more more humpbacks estimated to be alive today. Number 4. Blackfish. Orcas are some of the most intimidating and powerful creatures in the ocean. They are the apex predator of the seas and have incredibly complex social, feeding, and linguistic behaviors. Orcas are also known as killer whales, partially because they are voracious cetaceans, but also because they are the primary hunters of almost every whale species, as well as practically every single surface water predator, including great whites. They are apex predators, meaning they have no natural predators. Now, this is partially due to their size, power, and strength, but many ocean creatures have those qualities, ocean creatures that the orca preys on. What makes the orca special is its stunning level of intelligence. Orcas are one of the few animals in the world, aside from humans, that can recognize themselves in a mirror, indicating a degree of consciousness. They are also capable of vocal communication with a significant degree of complexity. This communication is so complex that resident orcas and transient orcas speak what seems like entirely different languages, but they also have specific dialects within the pods that make up those separate populations. Orcas use this stunning intelligence to observe, learn, and coordinate, and this has allowed them to devise different hunting strategies for every creature they prey on. This is what makes them apex predators. In the Arctic and Antarctic, orcas have developed techniques to use waves to smash apart ice floes and sweep seals off the ice into the water. In Argentina, orcas have learned how to intentionally beach themselves to catch unaware seals before catching a wave back into the sea. They hunt humpbacks by targeting the flippers, and great whites by flipping them upside down and eating their liver. Other orcas hunt shoals of fish or stingrays by swimming underneath and punting them out of the water with their tails. While perhaps a little psychopathic, orcas are so dominant for a very good reason. Number 3. Urchin parasites. Long-spined sea urchins may be a little boring to look at snorkeling and incredibly painful to accidentally step on, but they do in fact serve a critical role in Caribbean coral reef ecosystems. These urchins are herbivores, feeding on algae that grows along the seafloor and on the coral. This algae is a serious problem, as if left unchecked, it will swarm across coral reefs in a thick mat, blocking out sunlight and nutrients and starving the coral. Aside from coral bleaching, this is one of the greatest risks to coral populations in the world. And so, when the long-spined sea urchin population suddenly collapsed 85 to 95% since January 2022, scientists were both horrified and incredibly curious. They went to work at once trying to determine the cause of this populational collapse, and eventually discovered a ciliate parasite called Apodigitiformis, a parasite of fish. It seems this parasite has been behind the shocking collapse of urchin populations. There is no solution yet. The first step, identifying the problem, has been completed, but scientists still don't have a solution to the catastrophic die-offs of urchins, and the resulting algae blooms that will come as a result. In the 1980s, a similar unexplained urchin die-off occurred that decimated coral populations, and it's believed the same parasite was behind this crisis as well. More research is being done and progress is being made. However, it seems unlikely that the coral reefs, already precariously on the edge of collapse, will escape from this crisis unscathed, which will have follow-on effects for every species that interacts with the reef. Number 2. Brine pools. Brine pools are an alien and unsettling feature of the ocean's depths. They occur from 3 main processes. The first is brine rejection. As seawater freezes, like in the North and South Poles, the ice crystals push out most of the salts, minerals, and other impurities, leading to rivers of supercooled brine. This brine is more dense than regular salt water, and so sinks and eventually settles into pools deep on the ocean floor. They can also be caused by salt tectonics, where buried Jurassic-era salt in the Gulf of Mexico and West Indies is bared to the sea and forms brine pools there. Or, finally, they can be formed by geothermal heating, which is most common in the Red Sea. Once formed, these brine pools usually become still, and after 4 weeks of stillness without being mixed about, these brine pools become anoxic. The combination of near total lack of oxygen and the extremely toxic levels of salt result in these pools being essentially pits of death for any creature that touches them. And yet, though they are pits of death, they are also fountains of life. Because the brine is so salty, any organism that falls in is preserved almost indefinitely, meaning after after a few years, even an empty and unused brine pool eventually becomes filled with aquatic corpses. Mussels and clams ring the brine, feeding on the chemical soup and liquefied remains, and into the toxic pool dive all sorts of adventurous creatures. The deep sea is a hostile and barren place where food can be very hard to come by in the dark, and so, despite being incredibly lethal to anything that swims in it, the brine pools become oases of life, teeming with creatures. Number 1. Eagle shark. Also known as Achilolamna, the eagle shark is a long-extinct species of elasmobranch, which is thought to possibly be an early relative of modern skates and rays. The creature is exceedingly strange, with a blunt, rounded mouth and seemingly no snout as on modern sharks, and with incredibly distinct, narrow and long wings. These are, of course, the pectoral fins, but it is estimated, given the distinct nature of them, that they were used for stability as the fish swam languidly through the water. It has been suggested they could have also been used to fly in the water in a manner similar to modern rays. However, this cannot be confirmed as there is not enough fossil evidence. Currently, it seems that the pectoral fins were stiff and used instead like an aircraft's wing, a stable and rigid platform to produce lift while the tail propelled the fish. Given their relatively small size, small mouth, and obviously slow movement, it has been hypothesized that these fish were filter feeders, hunting slow-moving plankton and krill. However, once their teeth are positively identified, we will know much more about these strange and mysterious shark ancestors. Those were unbelievable animals discovered within the Bermuda Triangle. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, and share, and be sure to follow for more.